Hey everybody, Dennis Wood here for part 2 of our problem resolution with this 2018 Leaf SL. I mention SL because this has a front camera and radar for adaptive cruise, which I was a little stressed about when I was doing this job. How do you deal with the camera that's hiding away in this front fascia, and how do you deal with the front radar? Is it an issue? So we're going to cover those, answer those questions. So if you're doing those jobs, you will find this video helpful, even if you don't have a leaking rad. We are going to discuss how to take the rad out of the car, which boils down to this. Remove some clips, remove some covers on the front of the bumper area up here. Disconnect the battery, disconnect the camera harness. Pull off some fender liners like I have here. Pop the front bumper off. Actually, there's a few bolts on the bottom you'll have to get and take off that bottom tray. And then basically there's a few nuts and bolts to take off and the rad's out of here. So probably a rare issue you will have with this Radiator, but let's discuss how we dealt with it. And we'll do some resolution at the end here to figure out exactly where the leak is and maybe why it happened. So hope you enjoy it. A like and subscribe would be very much appreciated. Most of you, I think about 97% of people on the channel, watch the videos but don't subscribe. It would be super helpful if you would. We've just hit 500, which is awesome. We're looking for 1,000. That's my next target. So much appreciated if you could subscribe. Hope you enjoy this video. Before you disconnect this negative battery terminal, we're not going to disconnect the positive. We're going to disconnect the negative. We're going to leave that disconnected, but you want to pop your charge hood cover here before you disconnect that. Otherwise, you're going to be snookered. First of all, you're going to have to remove this cover. These pins, you'll see all over the place, they're plastic. You're going to pop the top of that, this one, and then the whole pin will pop up. I'll put a link in for the, again, there's, I don't know, probably about 10 obvious pins. We'll just set this down. And you're going to do the same here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to take those off and you'll see that these bits will be exposed. But I wanted to show you this, which I think's kind of cool. The camera. How do you deal with the camera? Well, the camera is bolted onto the back of the emblem here. So you don't want to pop it off because it's going to be connected to the bumper. All you need to do, we're just going to throw this light in here so you can see that. Just put this right here. There's a harness right here, which goes in to a connector. Where are you? Right here. So let's try and get in here. Get the light there. There's a connector right there. If you follow this harness down right here, this goes, it's connected to the bumper and it goes all the way down around. You can't really see it, but if you, it's, we'll show it when you take it off. And it's wired into the camera. So that's all you have to disconnect. It's just this one harness right here. All right, what you're going to want to do here is close the doors. Obviously turn off the car. Pop that charge cover. Close the doors. Leave the car for 10 minutes. Don't interact with the car. Don't pull up anything on the app. And after 10 minutes, you go ahead and basically take this negative terminal off. And now the car is not going to wake up. Just make sure that that can't touch anything. So we'll just tuck that out of the way down there. You could actually go and pull the battery connector as well, but we're not going to be messing with any of this or disconnecting it. We're just going to be loosening the brackets to get out of the way. So there you go. Okay, you can see we got the wheel off, and you're going to have to take off. If you don't actually have to take off the whole fender liner, we're just going to try. You're going to take a push pin off here. One here, here. There's actually 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. There. And again, under here, now that you have the belly pan off, or the chassis pan, there's really just 2 bolts we need to hit. So specifically this one and this one to take, they're connected here. You don't have to take this off. There's 3 bolts here. They don't actually go into the chassis. They're just connecting this little deflector to the liner. So let's give that a try and see how we do. All right, you can see we've got pretty much just half of the liner removed, and really the only thing we need to get to here, this screw right here, which you can see the head of that, and we're going to take that harness off right here, which is just a pull back and remove and undo that screw. Sorry, I lost my light there, but basically the screw that's sitting right there, and then we should be good to go here. Okay, huzzah! We have a front clip removed. There's a lot going on, but you know what? That wasn't too bad. Basically, just once you undo the screw that goes in here, it just slips out of here. This little guy, which is just a pretty flexible little piece. So, bumper clips here. So when you're pulling it off, just kind of tease along here. You hear a pop, pop, pop. Definitely do this warm. You can see here how it clips in. Just kind of snaps in. So again, corresponds to these spots here. Right here. Okay, and looks like that guides in as well. Same thing over here. Clips here. Again, don't forget to take these off, which are hiding underneath. You can get a better view of it now. If you look at the charge hatch, there's kind of, it's hiding, but right here is the clip that you want. And the pin is going through there, so that makes it easy to see. That's actually what's holding that on up there. And you can see I've disconnected the fog lamp. Again, I think we went over this. Clip, clip, clip. And again, screw removed from here. I have a feeling the screw on that other side wasn't actually in. But now that we're here, from the back side, because I had lots of questions about this, is what's going on with the camera. Well, the camera is screw 1, screw 2, and it looks like you could just dismount the camera from here. But notice how the harness goes here, 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 and around, and there's your disconnect. So you basically don't have to disconnect any of this. As we get in here, I guess at some point we'll get a look at where the radar sensor is hiding. I'm just going to move this bumper. It's not too heavy, by the way. It probably weighs about, I don't know, 30 or 40 pounds actually. Probably costs an arm and a leg, but I'm just going to point out here probably the ambient sensor, temp sensor there. And the radar is hiding in here somewhere. Looks like there's our little speaker. We're not going to have to mess with any of this though. So let's go to town and get some of these bits off. Looks like this just, yeah, this just pulls off. Just some pins that hold it on there. And yeah, the radar is going to be hiding in there somewhere, but, oh, okay, it's right in front of my face. It's right there. So, if at all possible, or try not to disturb this piece, which I think we are snookered because we do have to take this off. We're not going to disturb this in any way. But for the record, and you're probably going to want to clean that off while you're in here. But once you're done this procedure, this really should go in for an alignment, an ADAS, accident, I don't know, detection avoidance system. I think that's what it stands for. Because you can see this is bolted to this. And I do believe we're going to have to unbolt some bits in here to get at the rad, but let's just see. Maybe we can get away with not touching those. I'm thinking we're snookered though. We're going to have to probably, to get some room in here. Specifically, I can see it's super tight in here, in this area. So let's see how we do. All right, so we need to get down here and remove this piece that goes across. It's a bit of an air dam. So this one, and by the way, you can see these connectors. It's good to hit those with some, I'm gonna hit them with some Noxudol, which is a corrosion prevention. It's kind of a wax, because these, in this rust belt, these things get rusty. And when they lock up, they end up twisting out of there and damaging the piece. You can see it happened right here with this. And by the way, I mentioned that there were 2 bolts. There's actually 1 bolt, again, underneath the car, here and here. So there's actually 3 bolts down here. But here, it's just gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3 10mm bolts. So let's go ahead and take those out. Okay, I just wanted to point this out. When I got into the car here, this actually was not inserted here. These are deflectors, obviously, to direct. There's airflow that comes right through the bottom. Obviously, there's nothing up here in the grill. So the airflow all comes through here, and I guess it gets directed here. And this piece down here, which we just took off, you can see all the coolant on there. But we want to have a look at these tabs right here, because when this goes in, those tabs, 1 and 2, need to line up in those slots right there. So here, so after you remove the bolts and those clips, you want to make sure you're not like yanking down. You want to pull straight out, and you can see that they're tabbed, so they are restricted in there in this rad support carrier here, which is these are some of the next bits we'll have to take off in these bits. You can see this just pulls off, and as that one will, just like I said, this was somewhere out here. So obviously, I don't know, maybe it got pulled off in a gust of wind, or who knows, but that's our next step. So far so good. We haven't broken anything. Woohoo! All right, so you can see what happened. This little right side guard, which is normally sitting up there at the top here, this point, attachment point here, is going right. Again, another push pin clip right in there. You can see the hole over there. And then you're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's a really good idea to have a few pictures. This is a bit of origami here. You can see they've got some foam there, probably for anti-rattle. That's kind of cool. And then this bit goes here. Again, another push pin. So you can see how that kind of fits in like so, and yeah, shoves up there. Obviously, you're going to want to get those top pieces in first, and then put the side in last. And it looks like it's just some foam. So we'll go ahead, and I'm sure that those are fantastically expensive to purchase. So I will be careful, but we'll go ahead. This top one, again, hiding right there, is the pin we need to get out. So we'll take those out, and then we should be getting pretty close to getting this rad apart. Okay, just want to highlight these clips, which you can see are going into those slots back there. And one of the things that I did to make it easier, again, there's that top shield piece, and there's the other one down on the ground. One of the things to make this easier is, again, using this tool that I use for all these push pins. Instead of just pulling on that piece, because you're just going to damage this just flimsy plastic. It's part of it'll come out with the rad. Is just to go in here and actually pry down. And when you do that, you're going to pry down on this right here, and that'll be a lot easier. They come right out like that, versus just tugging on them, in which case you're just going to damage that plastic shroud. And I think I'm seeing the reason. No, actually, I don't see any reason to touch this bracket up here right now, but let's just see. Obviously, we're going to have to take these 2 bolts out, but I think we might get away with, and we have to take this this brace off the bottom here, but obviously to slide the rad down, I don't know. I'm thinking we might be good here. Let's wait and see. Okay, I just wanted to point out here, you're going to take out 13 millimeter bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you take note that these guys, which go up here, are shorter. And you can tell by the rust on those, we're definitely going to be doing some corrosion management now that I got all this apart. Again, I'm using Noxudol 300, but these longer ones, kind of self-centering deals, 1, 2. Do not get those confused because that is an important piece. And these are quite structural. Definitely brace the car, I am sure, when you're hitting bumps and, you know, hitting rough roads. We are, I believe, going to have to take this big guy off too, which looks like it's got a little bit of a bushing here. We'll go ahead and take those off. Kind of an important note here. We're going to remove this connecting frame member. This is structural. I mean, it's in the way of us dropping this rad out. I'm trying to avoid messing with the radar. If you don't have radar, I would just loosen that whole assembly off so you could actually lift. You can see I can move this, but I'm moving the whole assembly as one. Again, really should line up that radar, but the idea is to be able to drop this out. And it's not a big deal, but if you remove these bolts, this actually is, this bracket is supporting this subframe. So you can see I put in some axle stands here and just put some pressure on them, so I could just remove this piece, remove the 2 bolts here, loosen this, don't remove it all the way, and just back it out of the way like that. And up in here at the top, you can see it through that hole. It's a 17 millimeter bolt. And you've got this one, the 17 that's hiding in there. Again, another one. Oh, sorry about that, son. Again, hiding up in there, accessible through here. 13 mil there. There is a bolt hiding up here. So we got one more to get, which is hiding. I might have to, yeah, you probably, I think we can see it there, yep. It's just hiding up at the top, up there. And you can see it there, it's 13 mil. We're gonna get that out. And that should allow us to drop this piece off without disturbing a whole lot up top. And from what I can tell, once I've done that, 4 bolts on the rad, and we should be able to drop the whole thing down after we disconnect those hoses, one of them there and one at the top. All right, so I will admit that these bolts up here on the inside of this frame correspond to this right here. Were a bit tight to get into because of interference here and here, so you really have to make sure you got a good grip on them. They're 13 mils. They're not in there super tight, but you can see how this piece is basically connecting the frame and the subframe together. Again, I have the subframe supported. I just loosened this off, rotated this back. But if you look here, you can see that the, there's a leaf, the evaporator assembly. So this is the rad, and the evaporator for the heat pump and all that fun stuff is behind it. And that is sitting on this frame, which is sitting in these rubber bushings here. So you got to make sure when you put this back that you line this up. So, I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a lot of work to avoid moving this. I think if you really want to get this thing out of the way, you're going to be unbolting up here, and you're going to be messing possibly with the catch here for the hood is what I'm trying to point to, and alignment here. So I'm kind of thinking this is not a bad way to do it. Again, you just got to really make sure that you've got a good grip on this bolt. You might even have to go in with like a 1/8 ratchet. And you can see how the whole thing is kind of hanging down here because that was supporting it. So yeah, you want to be mindful not to yank anything, or damage anything, but it does look like the rad's going to come out no problem. I'll just take these 4 bolts, take the hoses off. There is a harness here, which is just clipped onto the rad. So I'll have to take that off and just look around and make sure there's no other wiring, but I'm pretty sure it's just the 2 hoses, and we'll drop her down. So far so good. This was a bit of a bear, a bit more than I expected supporting this. You can see how this is hanging down a bit. I lowered it down a bit to make it easier to get that bolt. If you're having trouble, lowering this will give you just a bit of room to get a socket in there. So there's some tips. Onward-o. We are doing well here. There's a long 10 millimeter bolt here, a long 10 millimeter bolt here, You can see the hose. I was just able to disconnect right there. The hose at the top here, right there. I don't know if you can see better angle up there, but basically just backed it off. It might be easier to do, honestly, to do that top hose while you're up top before you lower the car, definitely. And there's one 10mm bolt up here that goes through the grommet. Obviously, I think we pointed out this one, but there's a straggler up here, which is hiding. Let's see if we can get in here. Yeah, it's hiding right there. So we got to take that off, and then we should be good to go with the rad. All right, you can see the rad is out of there, and we'll do a little pose stop. Interesting that there's a lot of coolant right there. Kind of makes me wonder. It sounded like the rad was leaking over here, but you can almost tell by where this coolant is that there's a good chance that it's in this area. Good news is the heat pump and everything's working, and you can see, going back in the shop here, there's our rad. We got to take this plastic cover off. Looks like it just slides up there in those clips. Should be good to put the new one on. Yeah, so this plastic deal is actually pretty easy. And that just unclips. I guess that just provides a little extra protection. That's obviously going to be reused. Interestingly enough, there is no temp sensor in this thing. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to it. The new one is, we're going to do a post-mortem on this thing. This is a new one here. Compliments of Rock Auto. You can see it's pretty darn similar. Let's see if we can line this up the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, like this. You can see the clips. Looks pretty much the same. I can't see a whole lot of difference. Plug here. This one you can see is just plugged from the factory. The drain, all that business, same sort of deal here. That's our drain for doing our flushes. So, weighs nothing. Probably the lightest radiator I've ever held working on ice cars, as I usually do, or have in the past anyway, for the last 35, 40 years. So, looks like this is going to be pretty darn easy. So, quick note on the procedure that I used. I removed this bottom cross member, which, as I mentioned earlier, getting these bolts off, which are tucked in right here and here, are difficult. And in reviewing this, I don't see any reason actually that you need to take this off. Now, the Leaf's condenser slash evaporator, and it is a condenser slash evaporator depending on which direction the heat pump reversing valve is running in. So if this is generating, if it's a hot day and you're generating cold inside the car, this would be a condenser. And if the heat pump is working in heat mode, this would actually become the evaporator. And inside the inner coil, if you like, would be the condenser in that case. So that is basically interesting that this is behind the rad. In an ice car, it's the other way around. This will be out in front of the rad. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the rad is running at a much lower temperature in an EV and may be pretty close to ambient temperature air going through it. So I guess it's good that this is put back here for protection, because it's probably the more expensive part for sure. Runs at much higher pressures. But do we need to remove this lower cross member? Because the radiator is bolted to the frame that the condenser slash evaporator is mounted in. So there's no reason to take this frame down, and therefore there should be no reason to take this off. You could actually unbolt this. Now the thing is that you're going to have to sort of give up on the concept of not moving this radar or moving any of the mounting parts. This will require best practice a realignment for safety and for adaptive cruise and all those kind of fun things, which is not super cheap, but it's unavoidable in this case. Did I have to remove this lower cross member? I'm going to say no. What you would need to do is remove these 2 bolts, of course, because that's going to restrict the rad coming out. But you can take those 4 bolts out, bring the rad forward, and then all you need to do going up here is remove 3 bolts. that are basically restrained. If you see this right now, I haven't even unbolted it, but there's that's such a flimsy piece of metal up there that it is quite happy flexing. What I would need to do, and we'll just relocate the camera and take a peek at it, is take out a couple bolts up here and forget about not moving this, because you can see I'm moving it right now, which means that because I've disturbed this, technically it does need to be realigned. Let's take a closer look at what you have to unbolt up here. Again, if you're going to leave that cross member in place, which I kind of suggest that you do. All right, so again, if we just take kind of a wide look out at this bracket, which is kind of, everything's bolted to this cross member here, which is not very stable. Like it's not a thick piece of metal. You take out this bolt and this bolt, and then if we sneak down here, there's a bolt right there. If you were to just loosen those off, you could remove them, but if you don't want the charge port and cables to droop, you could literally just back those out. So 1, 2, 3, this whole piece, this whole radar harness, everything is going to be loose enough so that you can get in, and really that bolt at the top there, that 10mm bolt, is going to be the hard one to get out. Now this is all drop down. This is normally going to be up. But again, if you remove those bolts, you can actually bring this whole bracket forward, and then it becomes quite easy to get in there. So then you don't have to go through the hassle of removing that. That would be my recommendation for this job. Again, I have it off. It makes access easy. But again, just based on the difficulty at getting onto those bolts, these bolts with a 12mm socket, I would say try and leave that in. You don't need to take it off. Now, because I have removed the lower cross member and the whole rad is drooping, you can see that right here, there's a rubber post that fits into this bracket. So when you're lifting this whole mess back up, you can see it's actually, that grommet's right here, hiding right here. You just got to make sure you line those up. And these pins at the bottom, 1 and 2, need to line up with the grommets there. So you just have to take a little bit of care when you put that back up. Again, if you're going to do it with a cross member out. So that's it for tips and tricks on this one. While you have all of these components removed, I'm a big proponent of doing a little bit of work with corrosion proofing materials. In this case, this is Noxudol 700. There's another product called 300, which is black. 700 is a chassis wax that we would use on inner panels. It's actually not a bad choice for these components. You see a little bit of rust coming up here. There was a lot more underneath. Everything's kind of black right now because it is coated with Noxudol 300, which is a heavier product. This is a really good product for creeping into seams and crevices. So I'm going to run this front crash member structure. I don't know what to call it because it was impossible to get to it with all of the bits closed in. And I'll apply it up here in these areas. And certainly you can see this cross member. I'll just put this Noxudol down. Oh, normally it comes with spray. You can pop this cap off and use this wand. And it's a good way, if you don't have cavity spraying equipment, to run these cavities inside, because this is a dual chamber. There's a chamber up here and a chamber up here. So what you want to do is run this through, and it has a 360 tip that sprays in 360 degrees, and we'll coat this. Really good idea to hit all these spots. I'll probably hit a bit of these metal bits. There's rust on these. We're in the salt belt. Again, this is all closed in. There's just a slot down here where the air goes through, but salt spray will basically get all over the front of this. So it's actually doing pretty good, but I'm going to apply this product. If we look at the cross member, I'll just set this down. You're starting to see, so this is a 2018, 67,000 kilometers. You can see it's rusting in the seam. Again, this is fully protected and enclosed. You can see rust happening. Underneath the car was far worse, but these seams are what the Noxudol 700 is really good at. It'll basically penetrate and stop that. It also has, unlike things like fluid film or rust check or what have you, and fluid film, by the way, is a great product. I just prefer to use the Noxudol because it's got compounds in it that are part of their patent, which is related specifically to dealing with corrosion. I think there's 3 or 4. I might throw them up as titles here when I can't recall what they are exactly, but there's about 3 or 4 components in there besides the wax material that protect against rust. It never dries. It always stays messy, which is, you know, if you're looking for a show car, not great. But if you want to stop rust, over my 30 years or so of messing with different products, this is the one I kind of like the best. So good idea to do some of that. Just a bit of a tip. While you have it open, you might as well carefully spray these areas. This is the release for the hatch, the charging hatch. So it's a good idea to carefully go through here. This Noxudol does not harm electrical connections. So on an EV, it's, you know, again, I wouldn't be spraying directly on any high voltage cables, but certainly quite safe to use everywhere. The whole car is done. This is my second car now that I've done 2 or 3 years with these products. Noxudol 700 and 300, solvent-free, water-based, no smell, yada, yada. So you can look them up. I've posted, in fact, I do have a video on the whole process. So I'm not going to talk about that in this video because I probably talked too much already. Hope you find those tips helpful. One of the things I find most interesting about doing these repairs is a little bit of forensics on why the part failed or what failed and can it be prevented. Now this is a weird one. So this rad is leaking for sure. And what I've done is I've just got some 3/4 inch heater hose in my shop and I've gone ahead and made some fittings to go here. It's just a piece of hose. And this is a rubber stopper that came with the pressure, the rad press, kind of a generic rad pressure test adapter, I guess. And then on the back end here, what I've done, oh, I'm gonna lose this for sure, but I've just put a piece of hose on there and crimped the hose in half. So it's just a quick and easy rig to check pressure. And what I can do on the pressure tester without, hopefully that, and again, it's such low pressure that I'm not even clamping anything, but it is holding. So we're going to take it up to 10 PSI. And we can see, if you listen, you can actually hear that. And the leak is right here. Now I've got some soapy water here. So you go ahead, you know, you want to check the tanks and all that kind of fun stuff, but I'm not seeing any leaking here. I can actually feel the air jetting out. So this radiator looks to have taken an impact right here. And the funny thing about that is this is sitting in the front of the car. There's a slot in the very bottom of the bumper right about here. And if you kind of look at the rad, you can see it's a little more beat up. It's taken impacts and they kind of stop right here. There's no opening up here. It's just air comes in and it's sort of contained and it flows through. Keep in mind that the radiator, which is unusual for this EV and perhaps more, the radiator is on the outside. So there's an evaporator, usually on the outside in a nice car, and then the radiator, it's flipped. Probably because this never gets very hot. In a nice car, there might be 200 degree air or, you know, a 200 degree water in the rad, and you don't want that hot air going through your evaporator condenser. In the EV, the evaporator slash condenser, depending on whether the heat pump is in cool or heat mode, is behind here. So it's not there to take any hits, which is maybe good because this is probably cheaper. But how it took an impact up here, there's nothing here. If you look at the rad, sorry, if you look at the fascia on the front of the car, this is all blocked off. There's a radar symbol out, a radar detector out front. And like I said, it's just the slot in the bumper is maybe a few inches thick down here. And it may even be like slightly below this. So how that took a hit, your guess is as good as mine. Kind of a freak weird issue. The pressures at play are only 5 PSI. That's the cap release pressure. 5 PSI is not a lot. As you can see, I just put 10 PSI and I haven't even got these hoses clamped in. So this is a bit of a weird one. Definitely a fail. I could probably solder that, heat this up and get some tin silver or tin zinc, special type of solder, and fix this. Now I went ahead and ordered a replacement rad because it wasn't that expensive. So I will put in the new rad, but I definitely could have fixed this. So it's kind of a bummer, but you know, your 2 or 3 hours of labor to just get it out. Therefore, having a new one on hand saves you 4 or 5 days if you're waiting for one, because you're probably not going to find one in stock. So that is our issue, and we can go ahead and put the new rad in and get the car all buckled back up. That will be the conclusion of this video. If you want to know how to reassemble, just play that video I've already shot in reverse. A like and subscribe, very much appreciated. I hope you found this video helpful.